Well, here we are with the penultimate chapter for this textbook. We are winding down to the end, and this week we have a look at how to plan our classes. Throughout the book, we have seen various approaches to teaching languages. These approaches disagree in many aspects, but they do have one thing in common. Language classes should include a mix of language skills and a coordinated set of learning activities. So let's have a look at what this week's video has in store for us. As you can see, it isn't a particularly massive chapter like some of the monsters we've seen in this series of videos. Still, show it some respect and make sure you watch all the way through. As always, we start off with our first discussion. We are talking about lesson planning, so I'd like you to think about how much detail you need to put into your lesson plan. Do you think teachers should prepare minute-by-minute plans? Or do you think a rough guide that shows the general goals and activities to be done in the lesson is enough? Have a think about it and be ready to share your ideas in class. On pages 230 to 232, we see the lesson plans of two different teachers. They are teaching the same content, but in different ways. Mr. Smith has a kind of rough guide to his lesson, whereas Mr. Jones has the steps written in more details. I'm not going to say which is better, because you don't know much about the teachers themselves. As it says on page 232, with more experience, you'll be able to work on more of a rough guide, but early in your career, it may be better to work with more details in your lesson plan. When I first started teaching, I had a very detailed plan for every single lesson. Now that I am older and less wise, I don't have such a plan. There's a good piece of advice on page 231, where it says, "A lesson plan is really a script for a lesson. If the teacher unexpectedly became ill or otherwise unable to teach a class, another teacher should be able to conduct a very similar class by relying on the first teacher's lesson plan." That makes sense, especially for younger teachers. Something I would like you to remember, though, is that a lesson plan is just that, a plan. The lesson is not going to go to that plan exactly how you expected. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if your lesson does go exactly how you planned, then your lesson plan is wrong. I'll let you ponder over that for a bit while I move on to the next slide. I'm going to use two slides for the next section, planning for your students. Notice that your is in italics. This shows the importance of thinking about the students in your class, not just any students. Unfortunately, we don't always know much about our students until the course has started, so you may need to make some adjustments along the way. As you can see, we need to start with long-term planning. First, think about your overall goals for the course, then break the course into blocks, which are steps to achieving those final overall goals. Once you have identified these teaching blocks, get out your calendar and decide the timing of these blocks of lessons. When you have done that, you can start thinking about the individual lessons within each block. We'll discuss those in the next slide. Before that, however, I would like us to have a quick discussion. When it comes to overall goals, we can have grammatical topics, which are very common, but we can also have conversational functions, such as asking for directions or going to the post office. I would like you to make a list of the top 5 conversational functions you believe Japanese junior high school students should learn before graduating. Make your personal list, then we'll discuss these in groups and as a class. Now that you have your overall goals decided and your teaching blocks set out, you need to look within the teaching blocks to think about how you will cover all the necessary points. You need to translate the goals and topics into a set of activities and tasks for each day. We'll see some examples of activities and tasks you may want to use later in this chapter. On page 234, there are 6 very important points you need to consider in each class. I would like to add a little more to the first one, in that, as much as possible, try to relate your warm-up activity to the conversational function or grammar point studied in that class. This helps introduce the topic of the lesson implicitly, a great skill for teachers to bring to their class. Finally, think carefully about the energy you use in class time. As the book suggests, you don't want to start with too much energy because this can wane very quickly. Aiming to gradually increase the energy levels throughout the lesson is a great idea, and I hope you'll consider this in your own teaching. Next, we move into even more detail and look at directions within the lessons that we give. There is a great suggestion on pages 235 and 236 for the order in which we can give directions in our classes. For the second last one, I suggest you avoid just saying, "Do you understand?" It can be embarrassing for students if they say they don't understand. So often, students will pretend they do understand even though they don't. I suggest you ask questions about the directions you have just given. For example, so what are you going to do first? Where will you write your partner's answers? This will give us a clear idea of the extent to which our students have understood. Talking about clear, exactly how clear do you think we need to be? Our book suggests we need to be crystal clear when giving directions, but I'm not sure if I agree. I don't mean to say that we should be clear as mud, but I think that adding a little mystery and encouraging students to think for themselves can also be effective. What do you think? Do you agree? Let's have a chat about this in class. So here are the activities I was talking about earlier. There are 13 different kinds of activities on pages 237 to 241 that you could consider to use in your classes. Obviously, we need to prepare a good variety of activities to use in our lessons. But it's the timing of these activities and when we stop doing the activity in order to move on to the next one that can make a huge difference. There is a book called Teaching English to Children in Asia by David Paul, which has a really good idea about when to change activities. Many younger teachers will use an activity, and when they notice their students are enjoying it and having fun, they tend to keep the activity going too long. This can create a decline in energy over the class, like we see in lesson 2 here. On the other hand, if we stop the activity and change to another one while the students are still enjoying it, it will result in an increase in energy. This is not easy, and noticing the best time to change comes with experience. So we were talking about the 13 different activities on pages 237 to 241, right? I'd like you to choose 3 of these activities that you think would be best to bring out energy and active learning in Japanese junior high school students. Of course, if you can give some concrete examples of such activities, that would be very cool too. This chapter finishes off with a quick word or two about changing instruction and supporting learner autonomy. The way you were taught and the way you will teach will most likely be, and should be, quite different. Students are different, the teacher is different, and the learning situation is different. A really good trait of a great teacher is flexibility. I don't mean whether you can touch your toes or not, but whether you can teach under different circumstances. Be flexible and ready to meet any challenges that come your way. Likewise, we need to train our students to be flexible in their learning. We can't always be there helping them in their journey to learn language. Promote autonomy and pass on strategies for learning so your students will be ready to face language learning challenges that they will most certainly be faced with. Well, that's it for this week. It wasn't too bad, was it? Make sure you have your discussion ideas ready to go, be prepared for our usual quiz, and I'll see you in class.